My parents gambled away their savings and secretly put my house up as collateral. When the bank called, they demanded I sell my assets to cover their debt. "Give us the keys to your beach house," my dad ordered. Their faces turned ashen when I showed them the ownership papers proving. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon while I was reviewing quarterly reports. A stern voice asked if I was Wren Richards. When I confirmed, she identified herself as Sandra from Coastal Trust Bank, an institution I'd never done business with. "Miss Richards, I'm calling about the delinquent payments on your beach house loan. We've sent several notices but haven't received any response." I nearly dropped my coffee. There must be some mistake. I don't have any loans with Coastal Trust. The loan was taken out 3 months ago, secured against your property at 1842 Ocean Drive. According to our records, you're behind by $12,000. My stomach turned to ice. The beach house, my sanctuary, my reward to myself after years of climbing the corporate ladder, was paid for in full. I bought it outright last year. "That's impossible," I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "I own that house free and clear." Papers rustled on Sandra's end. "I have the documentation right here, Miss Richards. Your signatures are on all the forms. The loan is for $450,000 with your parents listed as co-borrowers." "My parents?" "Of course. I'm Wren, by the way, 36, VP of Operations at a tech firm. And until this moment, I thought I had my life perfectly in order. I'd worked my way up from nothing, put myself through college, and built the kind of success my immigrant parents always preached about but never achieved themselves. "Send me copies of everything," I told Sandra, scribbling down her email address. "I'll review it immediately." The documents arrived while I was still on the phone. There, in crisp PDF format, was my signature, or rather, an impressive forgery of it. Below that, my parents' names, Zlata and Lonnie Richards. "I need to look into this," I said carefully. "You'll hear from me or my lawyer soon." I hung up and immediately called Michaela, my best friend since college, and more importantly, my financial attorney. "Check your email," I said when she answered. "I need you to tell me these documents aren't real." While Michaela reviewed the files, I pulled up my banking app. The beach house deed was still there in my name, but something felt wrong. I dug deeper into my accounts, looking for any other irregularities. My phone buzzed. A text from my father. "Sweetheart, your mother and I are having everyone over for dinner tonight. 6 p.m. sharp. Important family matters to discuss." Another buzz. "Bring the beach house keys. We need to check on some maintenance issues." I stared at the messages, my hands shaking with rage. The casual audacity of it all. They must think I still didn't know. Michaela called back. "Wren, these documents, they're professionally done. The notary stamp belongs to Palmer Erickson. Isn't he your parents' old friend?" The attorney. "Yeah, I remembered Palmer at every family gathering, always laughing at my father's jokes, always ready with friendly legal advice." "Get dressed up," Michaela advised. "Go to dinner. Act normal, but don't say a word about what you know. We need to figure out how deep this goes first." I agreed, then spent the next hour in a daze watching the sun slip toward the horizon through my office window. My phone kept lighting up with texts from my mother. "Don't be late. Wear something nice. Bridget and Neil will be there." At 5:55 p.m., I pulled into my parents' driveway, noting their new Mercedes parked out front. Funny how they could afford that, but needed to steal from their own daughter. My mother opened the door before I could knock. "Darling," she exclaimed, air kissing my cheeks. "You look tired. Working too hard as usual?" I forced a smile. "You know me, Mom." The house smelled like my mother's signature beef stroganoff. Through the dining room doorway, I could see Bridget and Neil already seated, heads close together in conversation. My father emerged from his study, that familiar charming smile on his face. "There's my successful girl," he boomed, arms wide for a hug. "Did you bring the keys?" I reached into my purse, fingers brushing against the cold metal. The keys he wanted so badly, to the house they'd tried to steal right out from under me. "Of course, Dad," I said, keeping my voice light. "They're right here." His eyes lit up as he reached for them. And in that moment, I saw everything clearly. The years of manipulation, the careful grooming to be the responsible daughter they could eventually leech from. The way they'd always treated my success as a family resource rather than my own achievement. I pulled the keys back slightly, just out of reach. "But first, why don't you tell me what kind of maintenance issues we're dealing with?" The flicker of panic in his eyes told me everything I needed to know. "Oh, just some issues with the deck railings," my father said smoothly, but his hand dropped to his side. "You know how coastal properties need constant upkeep." We moved to the dining room where my mother was laying out her elaborate spread. Bridget barely looked up from her phone, while Neil offered an awkward wave. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with my mother's expensive serving knife. "So," I said, taking my usual seat, "what's this important family matter we need to discuss?" My mother and father exchanged glances. Bridget suddenly became very interested in her water glass. "Well, sweetheart," my father began, his voice taking on that silky tone he used when trying to close a deal. "Your mother and I have been thinking about retirement." "Really?" I kept my voice neutral while serving myself some stroganoff. "That's wonderful. What are your plans?" My mother sat down primly. "We've had some financial setbacks. The market hasn't been kind to our investments." "By investments, do you mean gambling?" The words slipped out before I could stop them. The clatter of silverware against china filled the sudden silence. My father's face reddened slightly, but he maintained his composure. "Now, Ren, that's not fair. We've had some unfortunate circumstances, yes, but we've always managed to handle our affairs. Until now?" I asked innocently. "The thing is," my mother cut in, her voice sharp, "we need your help. You've been so blessed with success, and we've always supported you. It's only right that you support us now." I set down my fork. "Support you how, exactly?" "The beach house," my father said. "If we sell it now, we can clear our debts and have enough left over for a comfortable retirement. It's the perfect solution." "Perfect for whom?" I asked. "The house is in my name. I bought it with my money." "We're your parents," my mother snapped. "Everything you have is because of us. We sacrificed everything to give you opportunities." Bridget finally looked up. "Mom, maybe we should stay out of this," our mother hissed. I pushed my plate away, my appetite gone. "Let me get this straight. You want me to sell my house to bail you out of your gambling debts?" "Don't be dramatic," my father said. "We've already taken care of the paperwork. All you need to do is sign the listing agreement with Neil here." Neil suddenly became very interested in his napkin. "The paperwork," I repeated slowly. "You mean the loan documents you forged my signature on?" The room went deadly quiet. My father's charm evaporated, replaced by something colder. "Who have you been talking to?" he demanded. "Coastal Trust Bank called today. Interesting conversation." I turned to Neil. "Did you know about this?" He wouldn't meet my eyes. "Ren, it's complicated." "It's not complicated at all," my mother interrupted. "You owe us this. After everything we've done for you, all the sacrifices we've made." "Sacrifices?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Like the college fund you gambled away, the one grandma set up for me, or maybe you mean the credit cards you took out in my name when I was 18. Bridget's head snapped up. "They did what?" "Oh, you didn't know about those?" I asked her. "I found out in college when I tried to get my first apartment. My credit was already ruined, took me years to fix it." "That was different," my father protested. "We paid those off eventually. And now you're trying to steal my house." I stood up, my chair scraping against the hardwood floor. "Did Palmer help you forge the documents, or did you find someone else this time?" My father's face went pale. "You leave Palmer out of this." "Why? Is he as nervous as you are about fraud charges?" My mother stood up so fast her wineglass toppled, spreading red across her pristine tablecloth. "How dare you threaten us after everything?" "Stop saying that." I slammed my hand on the table, making everyone jump. "You didn't sacrifice anything. You took. You always took, and now you've gone too far." I pulled out my phone and held up the screen, showing the email from Sandra at Coastal Trust. "You have 24 hours to come clean about the forgery, or I'm going to the police." "You wouldn't," my father said, but his voice shook slightly. "Try me." I grabbed my purse and headed for the door. "Oh, and Dad, about those beach house keys?" I turned back with a cold smile. "I changed the locks last week. Funny how things work out." The last thing I heard as I walked out was Bridget asking, "What did you two do?" I got into my car, hands shaking as I turned the key. My phone was already buzzing with messages, but I ignored them. Instead, I called Michaela. "How did it go?" she asked. "Time to move to phase 2, I said. "How fast can you get those fraud papers ready?" "I'll have them on your desk first thing tomorrow." I pulled out of the driveway, watching my parents' house shrink in the rearview mirror. The game they'd been playing for years was finally over. They just didn't know it yet. Michaela's office always reminded me of a war room. Today, spread across her desk were bank statements, loan documents, and property records. The paper trail of my parents' betrayal. "Look at this," she said, pointing to a highlighted section. "The trust your grandmother set up specifically prohibited using any properties as collateral without the trustee's approval." That's me. These loan documents shouldn't even exist. I leaned closer. "So how did they get around that?" "They didn't." Palmer backdated documents showing the trust was dissolved last year. She shuffled through papers. "But I have the original trust documents right here, still active." My phone buzzed. Another message from my father. I ignored it. "There's more," Michaela continued. "I had my assistant dig deeper into your accounts. Look at these transactions." She pulled up a spreadsheet on her monitor. Small withdrawals, ranging from $500 to $2,000, scattered across different accounts over the past 5 years. "They've been skimming," I said, feeling sick. All this time a knock at the door interrupted us. Bridget stood there, looking uncomfortable. "Can I come in?" she asked. I nodded, and she slipped inside, clutching her designer purse like a shield. "I need to tell you something," she said, "about Mom and Dad." "Let me guess. You knew about the loan?" She flinched. "Not exactly. I knew they were planning something with the beach house. I told them they were going too far," but she trailed off. "But what?" "Mom said you owed them. That you'd gotten everything while I got nothing." Bridget's voice cracked. I was jealous. "Okay? You with your perfect career and your beach house and everything just working out for you." "Working out?" I laughed bitterly. "Do you remember when I couldn't get an apartment in college, when I had to work 3 jobs just to afford a room in that sketchy basement? They said that was because you were bad with money. No, it was because they opened credit cards in my name and maxed them out." I pulled out my phone, showing her the old credit reports I'd saved. "See these? All opened when I was 18. All defaulted within a year." Bridget's face went pale. "I didn't know." "There's more," Michaela interjected, sliding forward a bank statement. "Remember those savings bonds Grandma gave you both for college?" "Mine disappeared," Bridget said. "Mom said the bank lost them." "No," I said quietly. "They cashed them. All of them. Yours and mine. Look at the dates." Bridget's hands shook as she read the document. "This was right before my first semester. They said they couldn't afford my tuition, that I had to take out loans. While they were gambling away our college funds," I finished. Tears spilled down Bridget's cheeks. "I've been so awful to you. All this time," I thought. "You thought what they wanted you to think." I handed her a tissue. "They played us against each other. What are you going to do?" "First," Michaela said, "we're filing fraud charges about the forged loan documents, then my phone rang, cutting her off. It was a number I didn't recognize. "Hello? Miss Richards? This is King Benson from the Housing Authority. There seems to be an irregularity with some property documents filed under your name." I put the call on speaker. "What kind of irregularity?" "Well, the foreclosure paperwork that was submitted, there are some discrepancies in the dates. Technically this could delay any proceedings for quite a while." I caught Michaela's eye. She nodded slowly. "How long a delay are we talking about, Mr. Benson?" "Could be months. These things have to be done properly, you understand, especially with the trust involvement." After I hung up, Bridget looked at me questioningly. "What does this mean?" "It means," Michaela said with a slight smile, "that we have time to do this right. Your parents can't touch the house while the foreclosure is delayed. And while they're distracted by that," I added, "we can start looking into their other activities. Palmer's involvement, the gambling debts." "I want to help," Bridget said suddenly. "I know things about their friends, their habits, where they hide stuff." I studied my sister's face, seeing real remorse there. "Are you sure? They're still our parents." "They stole my future," she said firmly, "and they tried to steal yours. I want to make it right." Michaela began gathering the documents into neat piles. "We'll need to move carefully. One wrong step, and they might realize what's coming." "They won't," I said, thinking of my father's smug face at dinner. My mother's cold certainty that I would give in. "They still think they're in control. So what's next?" Bridget asked. I picked up the trust documents, running my finger over my grandmother's signature. "Next, we start pulling threads, and we don't stop until their whole web falls apart." The next family dinner was my mother's idea. To clear the air, she'd said on the phone, her voice honey sweet. I agreed immediately. It was the perfect opportunity to set things in motion. I arrived early, watching my mother flutter around the kitchen like nothing was wrong. She'd made her famous pot roast, trying to recreate the comfort of childhood dinners when things were simpler. The bank called again. I mentioned casually, helping her arrange plates. Her hands stilled for just a moment. "Oh, apparently, there's been a lot of banking fraud lately. They're doing a big investigation." I kept my voice light. "Isn't that interesting?" The serving spoon clattered against the counter. "I'm sure it's nothing to do with us." "Of course not." I smiled, though Palmer seemed quite concerned when I ran into him yesterday. Before she could respond, the doorbell rang. Bridget arrived with Neil, followed shortly by our father. The tension in the room was electric. "How's the beach house?" my father asked, trying to sound casual. "Secure," I replied, meeting his eyes. "Very secure." Dinner started quietly, the only sounds the clinking of silverware and my mother's attempts at small talk. I waited until everyone had wine in hand before speaking. "I had an interesting meeting today," I said, "with the fraud department at Coastal Trust." My father's fork froze halfway to his mouth. "Ren, they're launching a full audit, something about irregular loan applications." I took a sip of wine. "Apparently, they're finding all sorts of fascinating patterns." "That's enough," my mother snapped. "We're trying to have a nice family dinner." "Like when I was 10, I asked, when you told me my college fund would be safe if I just trusted you?" Neil shifted uncomfortably. Maybe I should go. No. Stay, I said. You knew about the loan documents, didn't you? That's why you agreed to list the house. I didn't know everything, he protested weakly. But you knew enough. My father stood up suddenly. You're making a mistake, Ren. We can work this out privately. Like you worked out Grandma's trust or Bridget's savings bonds? Bridget's head snapped up. Tell them what you told me, Neil. All eyes turned to him. He looked like he wanted to disappear. I saw the paperwork, he admitted. Palmer asked me to backdate some property assessments, said it was just a formality. You had no right to involve him, my father growled at me, like you had no right to forge my signature. I pulled out my phone, set it on the table. Everything's documented now. The fraud, the theft, all of it. One call, and it all comes out. My mother's face went pale. You wouldn't dare. We're family. Family doesn't steal from family, Bridget cut in. Family doesn't lie and manipulate and be quiet, our mother hissed. You ungrateful. No, I interrupted. She gets to speak. We both do. For once in our lives, you're going to listen. The silence that followed was deafening. My father sank back into his chair, suddenly looking old. What do you want? He asked quietly. I want you to come clean to the bank, to the authorities, to everyone you've lied to. I leaned forward. Or I'll do it for you. You'll ruin us, my mother whispered. You did that yourselves. I stood up, dropping my napkin on the table. You have until tomorrow to call Palmer, confess to the bank, and start making this right. After that, everything goes public. And if we refuse? My father challenged, but his voice lacked conviction. Then I have a very interesting meeting scheduled with a journalist friend of Michaela's. She's doing a story on financial elder abuse and fraud. Imagine the headlines. I walked to the door, Bridget following close behind. At the threshold, I turned back one last time. Oh, and Mom? The pot roast is dry, just like it always was. Outside, Bridget grabbed my arm. Did you see their faces? Do you think they'll do it? They'll try to find a way out first, I said, getting into my car. But they're running out of options. My phone buzzed. A text from King at the Housing Authority. Documents filed. Foreclosure officially delayed pending investigation. I showed it to Bridget. The net is closing. They just don't know how tight it is yet. What if they run? They won't. I started the engine. They care too much about their reputation. And tomorrow, that's exactly what I'm going to threaten. As I drove away, I saw my parents through the dining room window, heads close together in urgent conversation. They still thought they could talk their way out of this. They were about to learn just how wrong they were. Senior financial abuse, a growing crisis in our community. I read the headline aloud to Michaela as she reviewed the draft article on her laptop. Her journalist friend Sarah had done an excellent job weaving my parents' actions into a broader expose. Names withheld for now. This will destroy them, Michaela said, not looking up. Are you sure? Before I could answer, my phone lit up with a text from Bridget. Mom's credit card just got declined at Nordstrom. She's having a meltdown in the store. It's starting, I said, showing Michaela the message. The account freezes are kicking in. My phone rang. Palmer's number. I put it on speaker. Ren, please, he said without preamble. Your father's been calling me non-stop. They're desperate. Are you ready to hand over that signed confession? A heavy sigh. Meet me at my office in an hour. Bring your lawyer. Palmer's office looked exactly as I remembered. Dark wood, leather chairs, success oozing from every corner. But now he sat behind his desk like a deflated balloon, sliding a manila envelope across to Michaela. It's all there, he said. The dates, the forged documents, everything. I kept records just in case. Smart man, Michaela said, reviewing the papers. They'll lose everything, Palmer muttered. They already lost me, I replied. This is just paperwork catching up. Back in my car, another text from Bridget. Dad tried using his golf club credit line, also frozen. He's freaking out. I smiled grimly and drove to the beach house. The sunset painted the waves orange as I walked along the shore. Phone pressed to my ear. The article runs tomorrow. Sarah confirmed. Want to know the best part? 3 other families came forward with similar stories after I started asking questions. Your parents weren't just stealing from you. Send me the details, I said. And, Sarah, thank you. My phone buzzed again. My mother this time. I let it go to voicemail, then played the message. How dare you freeze our accounts? We are your parents. You have no right to. I deleted the rest. A black SUV pulled up to my house. Bridget stepped out carrying a box. Found these in Mom's closet, she said, setting it down on my deck. More bank statements, credit card applications, even Grandma's old checkbook. We sat watching the waves, the box of evidence between us. Neil confessed everything, Bridget said quietly. How they pressured him to help with the property assessments, how they promised him a cut of the beach house sale, and I dumped him. She smiled slightly. Turns out I don't like cowards. My phone lit up. A text from King. Coastal Trust is launching a full audit. Multiple accounts flagged for suspicious activity. Then another message. This one from an unknown number. Miss Richards, this is Detective Morris with the Financial Crimes Unit. We'd like to schedule an interview regarding some recent fraud allegations. I showed the messages to Bridget. No turning back now. Good. She stood up, brushing sand from her jeans. I'm tired of their lies. That evening, I drove past our parents' house. The Mercedes was gone from the driveway, probably repossessed. Through the windows, I could see them pacing, gesturing frantically as they talked on their phones. My mother spotted my car and rushed outside. Ren, stop this madness right now. I rolled down the window. Check tomorrow's paper, Mom. Business section. You might find it interesting. We'll sue you, she screamed as I drove away. We'll tell everyone what an ungrateful daughter you are. I laughed. Actually laughed, because they still didn't get it. They had no power anymore, no money, no leverage, no sympathy from the community they'd fooled for so long. Back home, I poured a glass of wine and opened my laptop to find an email from Palmer's secretary. Thought you should know. Your father just tried to access the trust fund documents. System showed them as restricted. He threw a paperweight through the office window. Police were called. I forwarded it to Michaela with a single word, progress. My phone buzzed one last time. Bridget again. Mom's calling all our friends trying to get emergency loans. No one's answering. Think they finally figured it out? Not yet. I texted back, but tomorrow's paper will help. I walked out onto my deck, listening to the waves crash against the shore. Somewhere in the darkness, my parents were watching their carefully constructed world crumble. By this time tomorrow, everyone would know exactly who they really were, and I would finally be free. The newspaper hit driveways at 6 a.m. By 6:15, my mother was screaming into my voicemail. How could you? Your own parents. We're the talk of the entire town. Her voice cracked with rage. If you don't fix this right now, I deleted the message and pulled up the article on my phone. Sarah had done a masterful job. The story detailed multiple cases of financial exploitation with my parents' actions featured prominently. Though still unnamed, their description was unmistakable to anyone who knew them. Michaela arrived at my house just as another call came in, this time from Detective Morris. We're executing a search warrant at your parents' residence, he said. Given the evidence you provided, we'd like you to come down to the station to make a formal statement. I looked at Michaela, who nodded. We'll be there in an hour. As we drove to the station, texts flooded my phone. Family friends, distant relatives, even my mother's bridge club members, all expressing shock and asking if the story was about my parents. At the police station, Detective Morris led us to an interview room. Palmer's already given his statement, he said, sliding a document across the table. Signed a full confession this morning. Smart man. Got ahead of the charges. What about my parents? I asked. Officers are at their house now. But Miss Richards, he paused. You should know they're not taking this well. Just then, his radio crackled. Detective, subjects are attempting to destroy documents. Requesting backup. Excuse me, he said, standing quickly. Please wait here. Michaela squeezed my hand. You okay? Before I could answer, the door burst open. My father stood there, face red with fury, two officers right behind him. You ungrateful little, he started. Sir, step back, one officer ordered, grabbing his arm. She's lying, he shouted as they pulled him away. Everything we did was for her. My mother appeared in the doorway next, eerily calm. We raised you better than this, she said coldly. After everything we sacrificed, you mean after everything you stole? I stood up. The trust fund, the credit cards, the forged documents, we deserve that money, she snapped. Who do you think you are? I'm the daughter you tried to rob. I pulled out a stack of papers. And here's every illegal thing you've done to me since I was 18. Documented, witnessed, and ready for the prosecutor. The color drained from her face. Behind her, Bridget appeared looking shaken. Mom, she said quietly, they found the other forged documents in your jewelry box. Our mother spun around. You helped them search? You betrayed us too? No, Mom, you betrayed us, both of us for years. Detective Morris returned with more officers. Mrs. Richards, we need you to come with us now. This isn't over, she hissed as they led her away. Family doesn't do this to family. Exactly. I called after her. Remember that next time you try to steal from your children. The station buzzed with activity as officers processed my parents. Through the window, I could see reporters gathering outside. The story was breaking wide open. Bridget slumped into a chair beside me. They found everything. The gambling receipts, fake loan applications, even Grandma's old checkbook with practice copies of her signature. Are you okay? I asked. She laughed hollowly. No, but I will be. She pulled out her phone. Look at this. Palmer's been disbarred. It's all over the legal websites already. Michaela returned from talking with the prosecutor. They're charging them with multiple counts of fraud, forgery, and financial exploitation. Given the evidence and Palmer's confession, they're looking at serious time. Good, I said, standing up. Let's go home. Outside, reporters shouted questions, cameras flashing. I ignored them all, walking straight to my car. Through the station windows, I could see my parents being processed. My father's shoulders slumped in defeat. My mother's face, a mask of cold fury. They're saying Dad had gambling debts with some dangerous people, Bridget said as we drove away. That's why they were so desperate for the beach house money. They'll have plenty of time to think about their choices now, I replied. My phone buzzed with a text from King. Foreclosure proceedings officially terminated. Your house is safe. Later that evening, standing on my beach house deck, I watched the sunset over the water. My parents had tried to take this piece from me, this sanctuary I'd built for myself. Instead, they'd lost everything. Their reputation, their freedom, their carefully constructed facade of respectability. Bridget joined me, 2 glasses of wine in hand. To karma, she said, handing me one. To consequences, I replied, clinking my glass against hers. The waves crashed against the shore, washing away another day, and with it, the last remnants of my parents' control over my life. The courthouse steps were crowded with reporters when my parents arrived for their arraignment. Gone were the designer clothes and confident struts. My mother wore a plain black dress. My father, a rumpled suit that hung loose on his frame. They looked smaller somehow. Diminished. Ren. Michaela touched my arm. You don't have to watch this. Yes, I do. Inside, we sat near the back as the charges were read. Fraud, forgery, financial exploitation. The list went on and on. With each count, my mother's spine stiffened. My father just stared at his hands. How do the defendants plead? Not guilty, Your Honor, their court-appointed lawyer said. Of course, they'd never admit fault even now. During the recess, Bridget showed me her phone. Local news websites were blazing with headlines. Prominent couple charged in major fraud scheme. Parents accused of stealing from daughters. Financial predators in our community. There's more, she said quietly. Remember the Andersons? Their daughter came forward. Mom and Dad tried the same thing with them last year. A tap on my shoulder made me turn. King stood there, holding a manila envelope. Miss Richards, these just came through from the title company. Your house is officially clear of all claims. They've invalidated the fraudulent loan completely. I took the envelope, feeling its weight. Thank you for everything. He nodded. Sometimes karma needs a little help. Back in the courtroom, the prosecutor detailed the evidence. Bank records, forged documents, Palmer's confession. With each new revelation, whispers rippled through the spectators. These weren't just crimes against family. They were calculated acts of betrayal spanning years. During a break, my mother's best friend Martha approached me, wringing her hands. I had no idea, she said. All those charity committees she chaired, all those community events, it was all fake, wasn't it? Just like the designer bags she sold you, I replied. The ones she got from that special connection in New York? Martha's face fell. Those were counterfeit too? Everything about them was counterfeit. The afternoon brought the bond hearing. My parents' lawyer argued for release, citing community ties. The prosecutor countered with evidence of hidden assets and flight risk. Your Honor, she said, we've discovered attempts to transfer funds offshore as recently as yesterday. The judge's gavel came down hard. Bond denied. The defendants will be remanded to custody pending trial. As officers approached with handcuffs, my mother finally broke. Ren, she called out, please don't let them do this. I stood up slowly, feeling every eye in the courtroom on me. You did this, I said clearly. Every choice, every lie, every theft, that was all you. We're your parents. No. My voice was steady. You're criminals who happen to have children. They led my parents away. My father shuffling. My mother still calling my name. The heavy doors closed behind them with a final thud. Outside, Bridget and I pushed through the media crowd to my car. A reporter thrust a microphone at me. Miss Richards, how does it feel to send your own parents to jail? I paused, turning to face the cameras. It feels like justice. And to anyone else out there being exploited by family, speak up. Break the cycle. That evening, I sat in my beach house study, reviewing documents from Michaela. Lists of my parents' victims, amounts stolen, lives damaged. With trembling hands, I began writing checks. Not large amounts, but enough to help some of their victims start recovering. You don't owe them anything, Bridget said, watching me. I know, but I can help make it right. My phone buzzed. A text from Detective Morris. Thought you should know. Your mother's bridge club visited the station today. Turns out she was running a pyramid scheme through their investment group. More charges coming. I showed Bridget the message. She laughed, but it was hollow. Will it ever end? she asked. Soon, I said. They've lost everything now. Money, freedom, reputation. Even their friends know the truth. Through the window, I could see my parents' country club in the distance. The place they'd once held court, throwing lavish parties with stolen money. Now they were headline news for all the wrong reasons. Bridget poured us both some wine. To karma? No, I said, raising my glass. To truth. It always comes out eventually. As the sun set over the water, I thought about my parents in their cells, finally facing consequences after a lifetime of manipulation. They'd tried to steal my house, my money, my future. Instead, they'd lost everything that mattered to them, including their daughters. Sometimes justice arrives in unexpected ways. Sometimes it takes losing everything to understand what you had. And sometimes the best revenge is simply letting the truth speak for itself. The verdict came down on a clear autumn morning. I sat in the courtroom, Bridget's hand gripping mine as the judge addressed my parents. The evidence presented in this case reveals a disturbing pattern of exploitation and betrayal, she began. Not only of your own children, but of numerous members of this community who trusted you. My mother stood rigid, her prison jumpsuit a far cry from her usual designer wear. My father seemed to have aged decades since their arrest, his shoulders permanently slumped. In light of the overwhelming evidence and the severity of your crimes, this court sentences you to 8 years in state prison, followed by 5 years of supervised release. You are also ordered to pay restitution to all victims. The gavel struck. It was done. Outside the courthouse, Michaela handed me a thick envelope, the last of the restitution paperwork. Every victim has been contacted. Every stolen dollar accounted for. Including Grandma's trust? Bridget asked. Especially that. Michaela smiled. The trustees voted to redistribute it equally between you two, as she originally intended. My phone buzzed. A message from King. Palmer just finished his community service presentation at the senior center, warning elderly residents about financial fraud. Ironic, isn't it? A reporter approached, microphone extended. Miss Richards, any comment on the sentencing? Just this, I said facing the camera. Trust should be earned, not assumed. Even from family, especially from family. Back at the beach house, Bridget and I walked along the shore. The waves crashed against the rocks where our parents once planned to build their retirement dream home with my money, of course. Did you see Mom's face? Bridget asked, when they read the victim impact statements. First time she's ever had to listen to the truth about herself. Martha's statement was brutal. All those fake investment opportunities, the counterfeit luxury goods. The truth usually is brutal. I picked up a shell, examining its broken edges. But necessary. My phone rang. Detective Morris updating me on the ongoing investigations. More victims had come forward, more charges being filed. The web of deception kept unraveling. They'll never stop, will they? Bridget said after I hung up. Even in prison, they'll probably try to run some kind of scheme, but they can't hurt us anymore. I pulled out a small box from my pocket. Speaking of which, inside were 2 sets of keys, the originals my father had demanded so long ago. What are you going to do with them? I walked to the edge of the water, something I should have done years ago. The keys arced through the air, glinting in the sunlight before disappearing beneath the waves. Symbolic maybe, but it felt right. Back on the deck, Michaela waited with papers spread across the table. The trust is officially reformed. Your grandmother would be proud. Of sending our parents to prison? Of you both standing up for yourselves? Of breaking the cycle? My phone buzzed one last time. An email from Sarah. Stories going national. Producer wants to do a documentary about financial abuse in families. Interested in sharing your experience? I showed it to Bridget. She nodded slowly. If it helps other people recognize the signs, she said, maybe some good can come from all this. The sun was setting now, painting the water in shades of gold and crimson. Somewhere in a prison cell, our parents were beginning their new reality. No more manipulation. No more schemes. No more control over our lives. You know what I don't feel? I said suddenly. What? Guilty. They kept telling us we were betraying them. That family doesn't do this to family. But they were wrong. Family doesn't steal from family, Bridget finished. Exactly. I raised my glass to real family. The ones who build you up, not tear you down. As darkness fell, we sat listening to the waves, no longer haunted by the weight of obligation or the chains of manipulation. Our parents had tried to steal my house, my future, my peace. Instead, they'd lost everything that truly mattered. The beach house stood strong against the darkening sky, its lights warm and welcoming. Not just a house anymore, but a symbol of everything they couldn't take. My independence, my strength, my truth. I thought of the keys sinking to the ocean floor, releasing the last hold they had over me. Some doors need to stay closed forever.